Господи амбасадорке, ви благодарам што сте дел од нашата програма. Поддршката за Украина беше потврдена и на овој министерски состанок на министрите за надворешни работи, но до кога тие аргументи ќе обстојат во долга војна која што има многу последици?
Thank you very much for your interest and my warm greetings to all people in North Macedonia. I was there in September, so it was wonderful to meet the President and Defense Minister and Prime Minister and everybody. So we will be through, it's 2 years since North Macedonia joined NATO, and it has been excellent 2 years. You are a strong ally, partner, so we are learning from you, from your experience in West Balkans, from the commitment to NATO, and also to your full wish to integrate in the whole Euro-Atlantic community. So good luck with the EU negotiations as well. And yesterday, North Macedonia, along with the other 29 allies, but also with Finland and Sweden, we had 2 important sessions. One was on the allied security, so the allies at 32 plus invitees, Finland and Sweden, discussing our own internal issues. And the most important was, of course, Russia as a most direct threat to the Allied security in a larger sense, not only what it's doing with its aggression against Ukraine, but what it means for us. And the message was a one of strong unity, very clear that the deterrence and defense and the security at its widest understanding is important, and the evaluation is very much the same unanimity among the allies, that Russia's war affects our security, our economies, our energy security, our information space and everything else, because Russia's actions is not only aggression against Ukraine, but it wants to undermine the wider international rules-based system, to undermine the world that has guaranteed democracy, well-being of our people, security, and ability of our next generations to do even better than we have done. So that's why allies were so unanimous in their evaluation of Russia's actions and in their support to Ukraine in fighting this illegal war that Russia has waged upon it. So our security very much depends on the fact how successful Ukraine is in its self-defense in accordance with the UN Charter against Russia. Nobody was challenging Ukraine. Ukraine, like any other countries, has a right to choose its own arrangements, whether it wants to join alliances, whether it wants to join the EU, or not. And that is not a reason for any country to attack another country. So that's why allies are so unanimous that for as long as it takes, Ukraine will be supported in its self-defense against Russia's aggression.
Но ве прашувам, бидејќи доколку ги видиме разликите внатре во Европската Унија и знаејќи колкав дел од земјите членки на ЕУ се всушност и дел од алијансата, прашањето е дали тоа единство може да биде подкопано од економската и енергетската криза со која сме соочени.
Currently, as I said, the unity and unanimous evaluation, what is the reason for more difficult situation in our economies is very clear. It's Russia's actions, not only against Ukraine, but against wider international community. It has affected our economies through the higher energy prices, through more difficult supplies, but it has affected also globally other countries in Africa and elsewhere through higher food prices, through less grain available, through higher energy prices. So what Russia has unleashed to the world is the basis why it's not only about the EU or NATO what remains united, who remain united in their approach, in their support to Ukraine, but why we have that international community we see through the votes in the United Nations and G20 and other, that what Russia is doing is trying to undermine the world and the predictability as we know it. That is the basis. UN Charter is the basis of the whole functioning of international legal system and international political system. And countries in the world don't want that system to be undermined because it guarantees stability, it guarantees these relations between countries that are predictable. And on the basis of that, you can further build then the economies, you can build future for your countries, education, and so on and so forth. So there's no country that supports Russia directly in this war. And we have heard, yes, China, for example, supports Russia through its disinformation and hostile information attacks and joining, in anti-NATO or anti-West rhetoric. But China is not supplying Russia with weapons. China is not providing direct support to the war, as far as we know it. So there are very clear levels of unity within the EU and NATO that will last for as long as it takes. But there is also wider international understanding and support that this war that Russia is waging is bad for the whole world.
Се разговара и за Кина и тука имаме една специфична ситуација. Од една страна, таа е добар економски партнер, но како што посочи и генералниот секретар, постои ризик од и кон критичната инфраструктура. Што тоа значи?
NATO's new strategic concept that was just accepted at the Madrid summit and which provides a roadmap for the years to come. The policies where the 30 allies again unanimously agreed what the strategy for the alliance is quite clear on China, that China is not a threat. It doesn't call China a threat, but it does call it a challenge. And it does call out China on a number of issues that worries allies. One, there is lack of transparency on Chinese capabilities, nuclear, conventional military, space capabilities. There is very clear calling out China, and cyber attacks have been attributed to Chinese actors. So that is quite clear. I mentioned already the hostile and disinformation attacks against the allies, where China has joined Russia as another hostile actor against NATO and the West. So there are very clear elements in the strategic concept where allies express their concerns and worries and clearly underline that China is a challenge in that respect. But there is also an understanding that there are issues on which we need to engage with China. And as I said, for example, more transparency, the arms control issues, climate change, and others where indeed allies would like to see China's cooperation. Because again, we all think that there is more stability in the world if there is cooperation instead of confrontation.
Војната во Украина исто така го отвара, споменавте, тој простор за дезинформации, за лажни вести. Како НАТО се справува со тоа и генерално како да се справиме со тој проблем?
So for NATO in particular, that is nothing new. Since the establishment of NATO 70 more years ago, NATO has always been an object for, propaganda, disinformation, subversion, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, it's a different age. Digital technologies, the advance of digital age has changed the tactics of our adversaries. So in that respect, we are responding very clearly. We are monitoring and trying to understand everything. We are working with the allies, we are working with our civil military commands, with intelligence services to understand the hostile actors, to understand their tactics and strategies that they use against the allies, different countries, different approaches. We are being proactive in our communications because we believe that our audiences and the world audiences are best served with facts, what we do and how what we do in a truthful, open way. So we are actively engaging with journalists, we are actively working with various think tanks, educational institutions, universities, worldwide media. So there is very clear proactive approach to put out the fact that NATO is organization for peace. It's a peace project. It's a defensive alliance of civil military nature. So that is the second approach. So identification of hostile actors was the first, proactive communications in the second, and third is very actively working with partners across the globe. So with European Union, with the United Nations, but also with the private sector, also with the civil society, with the widest possible organizations in our and our partner countries, but also elsewhere, to make sure that we all share the knowledge, expertise, and we also learn where often expertise and knowledge is not necessarily in the governments, but outside governments. So that allows us to in a pretty sort of organized and clear way, both to understand what are the hostile actors and what they are doing to us, but also how we can best respond to those.
Босна исто така ќе биде една од темите, но оно што е дилема каде, како што официјално се вели овдека во НАТО, а каже генералниот секретар, каде ја гледате таа опасност од и ризик или потенцијал кој би можел да биде искористен од Русија за можна дестабилизација, бидејќи ситуацијата на Западниот Балкан е специфична. Ние сме 3 наспрема 3, 3 земји се членки на НАТО, го имаме Босна, го имаме нерешеното косовско прашање. Значи, што е што?
We have to then separate a little bit what the governments do or public institutions, who again have to be transparent, fact-based, looking at the long-term relationship with the society. So it's very clear that the governments have to be fact-based, truthful and transparent in their communications to their societies, because that establishes that long-term trust that we need with our citizens. So I think that is one main approach. But we also, as governments, as public institutions, need to recognize that with the advent of digital technology, society groups have access to much more information, and the audiences are so diverse, much more than it used to be. So our citizens are very empowered themselves to also act as communicators. So it's very important to have those groups that are trusted sources in society, whether those are, and who are local sources, municipalities, local newspapers or local media, religious organizations or other organizations, depending, what are the countries and how their societies function. And it will be different from Finland to Bosnia. It will be a different solution. But only this togetherness, and plus the educational factors, the fact that also through education institutions, we as parents, but also we as teachers, we as wider society from the early stage in life, just need to talk to our children, to the pupils, and tell them what is media literacy, how to identify, how to check elementary facts, not to trust just, the clickbites and the fast sort of information running past our screens. And my comparison would be that what we do with food, we don't put in our mouths just whatever comes in front of us, right? We evaluate what we want to eat. So we have to treat the information through our eyes and ears in the similar way, that we have to evaluate what it is and whether it's good for us. So once we are able to have this complexity of approaches, our democratic societies will be fine. I'm not speaking about authoritarian societies. That is a different situation there. But here we are discussing about something where, again, for North Macedonia or other countries, we have to trust our citizens. You mentioned Bosnia. Bosnia is our close partner, close NATO's partner, very important partner. And indeed, we work closely with our Bosnian colleagues, and we are happy that they have chosen the path to Euro-Atlantic integration, and we are there to support them in their path. And we work in support of the defense capacity building, of stability, resilience, of variety of other fields, the crisis management, the disaster management, and so on and so forth. So it's a strong relationship, and of course we are very happy that UN Security Council passed a resolution on the Operation Altius prolongation, where NATO headquarters in Sarajevo play an important role also in supporting that, but also our commander, our strategic commander, deputy chief of staff at NATO's strategic command in shape, is a strategic commander of that operation, enabling planning and support to the operation, which enables stability not only in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also contributes to the stability in Western Balkans like KFOR does in Kosovo and other places. So it's a network of initiatives that we as international community do, and North Macedonia plays a very important role as a stable and predictable country in the region.
Северна Македонија помогна на Украина и со директна војна помош. Од тука како го оценувате придонесот на најмладата членка во колективната безбедност?
North Macedonia's input and impact is actually pitching above its weight, if I may say so, in an American term. Not only it's a beacon of how new countries should integrate into NATO. You know, the efforts that we see with defense spending, the training of your defense forces, participation in exercises, hosting exercises. So it's a whole sort of variety of work that your teams in North Macedonia is doing. But also, as you said, support to other partners. So what North Macedonia has done for Ukraine, again, it comes back because it's in our self-interest. We are not only doing that because it's important for Ukraine itself, but it's important for this international law, for the stability of international principles for us ourselves, so our citizens would be safe and secure. We of course look forward in helping Ukraine more, and also what North Macedonia can do more for Ukraine. We know that there are Ukrainians sheltering in North Macedonia, but also that both the lethal, non-lethal aid has been provided. All that is needed also in the future. And we know that citizens across the alliance donate money for Ukraine and to support various initiatives. It's all every cent, every initiative is crucially important for this time.
Украина инсистира на итна и безусловна помош сега и веднаш. Но факт е дека она што го гледаме е известна воздржаност и предпазливост од страна на алијансата. Зошто?
Again, an alliance is very united in supporting Ukraine for what it needs. So more air defense, more support in enabling military operations, civilian support. There is everything. There are billions of dollars and billions of euros that are going directly for Ukraine, but also where the equipment is being bought. NATO has a special CAP or capability assistance program, comprehensive assistance package for Ukraine, where again counter-drone equipment, where the fuel is supplied. So there's everything that is needed is being supplied. Obviously, there are some issues that are being discussed behind closed doors on the variety of lethal aid, and it's better that it is discussed behind closed doors. And if countries don't want to publish the information what they are provided, it's their right not to publish that. And you know that there is a group called Rammstein Group, or that is allies providing, coordinating what lethal assistance needs to be provided to Ukraine. So that work all is happening to enable Ukraine to defend itself, and the commitment is full.
Госпоѓо амбасадорке, вашето портфолио, вашата работа е да ги имате, одговорите на сите тешки прашања, па за крај уште едно. Дали чекориме на тенката црвена линија меѓу зачувувањето, одржувањето на мирот и ризикот од почеток на Трета светска војна, и зошто?
So for NATO, I can only speak for NATO. The three main line of efforts have been very clear. Russia's war affected Allied security. So the overall security in the Euro-Atlantic area was affected negatively. That's why the deterrence and defense has been strengthening. You see more forces, not only in northern part of the alliance, but also in the southeast, here in Romania, in Bulgaria, and elsewhere. There are more capabilities, different capabilities, more ships, more planes, more intelligence, ISR capabilities, to make sure that we see if the threat arises and are able to respond. There are different control command arrangements, so countries have the command of their troops to secure Supreme Allied Commander, so he is enabled to act fast if necessary. So all this very clearly shows that the alliance is ready to defend every inch and all parts of the alliance. And Russia knows it. So we see that Russia is being very careful, not challenging NATO directly. So there can be accidents which need to be clarified to make sure that we understand what are those accidents, like the missiles, 2 missiles that fell in the Polish territory. But quite clearly we know that Russia knows that our commitment to the Allied security is 100%, but so is the support to Ukraine for the reasons I explained. It's not only the Ukrainian own self-defense that they do in accordance with UN Charter, but the wider international rules-based order that is being defended. And that's why we work with partners globally to make sure that they understand both NATO as a peace project and our role, but also that they clearly evaluate Russia's actions the way we see and understand them.
Madam Ambassador, thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me to have you.
Thank you so much for your interest, and good luck to Northern Macedonia and all my friends there.
Thank you.
Thank you.